Everybody's talking about the Make in India campaign, posters plastered all over town. How different is the mood as far as India is concerned from this time to compare to last?
Definitely much more upbeat. I mean, last few years, to be honest, have been not so bright for India. After having done very successful campaigns in 2008, 2010, when India was being talked about, we fell off the radar, I would say. This time, amongst the competing voices from around the globe, I think our job is much easier this time.
So the job is easier. There's a huge sales pitch as far as Make in India is concerned. The question is that there is a lot of buzz around Prime Minister Modi, his A-team. Is it easier to sell some of the propositions that you were finding difficult to sell last time around?
Well, you can see from the attention that the Indian delegation is getting. For example, the Finance Minister, Mr. Jaitley's session is absolutely sold out. There's more demand to create more spaces or put up screens in other rooms and all that. This has not happened for a long time. So clearly there's an excitement, there's a need to connect with India, there's a need to hear our Finance Minister. My own view is that the Indian government delegation which is here will go back very satisfied, and for all the efforts that they have put in the last few months, I think the world is taking notice.
A satisfied government delegation also means an upbeat corporate India. The whole Make in India campaign, and like I started my interview by saying that the town is plastered with posters. It's good to see the lion check-in into Davos, but let me throw a googly at you. You are a first-generation entrepreneur. Will you make in India at this stage?
Absolutely. I mean, we are doing it on a daily basis. While we don't manufacture nuts and bolts, we manufacture bits and bytes. And every year we are spending more than 13,000 crores in India, in the remotest parts of India, covering rural India. So our commitment to India remains very strong. We will be putting in much more capital expenditure towards data highways now, including now the much expected and anticipated 4G.
But what are the challenges that continue to exist, say for something like manufacturing that the government is trying to make a very big push for?
I think it's the translation from thought, action to execution. I think the thought leadership is clear. You can see a lot of activity. It's a hard-working government. I've said this before. The execution part is taking time. So at times you hear noises, which, especially from the people who are, trying to invest in India or manufacture in India, that things are not moving at the pace at which the actions and thoughts are suggesting. So that lag needs to be killed now. And I think there seems to be determination in the minds of policymakers to convert the action into execution.
Fair point indeed, sir. You've always been known to talk frank, and I'm going to put this question to you. Sentiment is definitely looking up. People say hope precedes action, and that's also looking up. While the sentiment is looking up for the rest of the economy and for the world at large as far as India is concerned, it isn't the same about telecom. What's gone wrong here?
Well, I think telecom has had its own set of problems. If you look at it, 2008, 2010 was a turning point when lots of licenses were given, fractionalization of spectrum happened. You gave tiny amounts of spectrum to so many people who till date are not putting it to use, and the large operators got starved of the very vital resource of spectrum. And then of course there came the famous cancellation of the licenses, which led to a complete departure from the old way of sanctioning or giving spectrum into auctions. So thankfully this government has taken upon itself to do an auction on 25th of February. So we are all waiting to participate in that. We would have liked more spectrum to come in, but there seems to be a decision that the 15 megahertz of 3G spectrum and perhaps more will be done in the round 2 during the next financial year.
I'm going to discuss the 3G bit in just a while from now, but the fact is that, the previous government, and because of obviously what happened in 2010, was looking at telecom as a goose that lays golden eggs, almost killing the sector. This government also seems to be looking at telecom as a revenue maximization stream. Does that disappoint you? Or is that a reality you're willing to live with?
I think it's a reality. If you look around the globe, spectrum has become a source of revenues for many governments, both developed and the developing. There are models which have been very different from the models that we are following. China, for example. China Mobile and other operators have been given tons of spectrum, free of charge, with a commitment from them that they will roll out networks. So the result of that is China Mobile has rolled out 700,000 base stations in 4G. They will get to 1 million base stations this year. India, on the other hand, is spending a lot more on spectrum and rolling out much smaller amount of base stations and networks. So it's a trade-off, but in the end, no model is right or wrong. There are different models. Africa, for example, has given a lot of spectrum. Again, they want development of the networks, Bangladesh has given a 3G spectrum only for $100 million with a clear commitment that you roll out. India has taken a path, you guys decide what you want to pay. Now my problem is, in 2010 when 3G was put for 1/4 of the reserve price of today,
right, yes.
we killed each other and took it 4 times up. If the reserve price is high, you will not expect the prices to boil. So my view is, given the shortage of spectrum, whichever way you look at the pricing, there is so much of demand and competition that you will see the prices settling at a level which are fairly high.
Is it a possibility that telecom operators like yourselves, who are market leaders, who call the shots, who set the trend, will decide to boycott this 3G spectrum? Why get into this unnecessary war out to each other in a scarcity-induced spectrum auction in any case?
No, I think boycotting spectrum is not the answer. You have to participate. As players, what's my lifeline? My lifeline is spectrum. Without spectrum, we have no life. So we have to participate. And eventually consolidation in this sector will ensure that there are few players who can make an economic case of their services. The good news is the consumption of both minutes and data in India is very high. Therefore, even if there is a price readjustment, it will not be something that will be onerous for the customers.
But Mr. Mittal, there's an obvious consumer angle to all of this, which seems to be missing the argument as both sides make those arguments. Higher spectrum costs will result into higher consumer services. Is that something that you can deny?
But that's what I'm saying. Thankfully, the scale is so much that the marginal adjustments of tariffs over a period of time is not going to hurt the customer. Let's assume 10 paisa more per minute or 5 paisa more per megabit is going to be megabyte is going to be charged from the customer. It's not going to create a big hole, but the amount of contribution that flows through can then justify some of these auction prices.
You began talking about the 3G spectrum and how 15 megahertz is going to be available only at a later stage. The regulator says that you should put up for auction all that is available, even if it comes at a later date. Isn't that a potent argument? Shouldn't the government have gone by that?
I think we all are agreeing. It appears to me that the government is also agreeing with that. All they're saying is we want to do 2 steps instead of 1 step. And we are fine. I mean, as long as the government is committed to bringing in that next round, in the next financial year, I think one can plan their life around that.
We're discussing 3G, but what about 4G? Why has that not taken off? Everybody seems to be still struggling on the ground for that to really pick up.
Things are moving. We've got 14 cities which are running. Some of them are doing reasonably well now. Ecosystem of 4G, especially the TD side, where India has started off, has taken longer to develop. But I'm very pleased to see the developments in China now. TD is flourishing. More handsets are coming, more dongles are coming, more devices are coming. I think in 12 to 18 months, you will see a lot of activity.
At the cost of sounding repetitive, will Reliance's entry change the dynamics in this space?
Well, I think it creates a better ecosystem. One person alone cannot, take the entire load of a new ecosystem. More players will mean more devices, more networks, cheaper networks, and a much, much better and enabling ecosystem for the market. So from our point of view, there needs to be 3 or 4 people who are going to drive the 4G piece as well. So besides us, Vodafone, Idea, very clearly Reliance Jio is taking that position. So I think you can never drive an ecosystem with 1 or 2 operators. You need 4 or 5 operators.
And when do you expect pricing power to return to telecom operators like yourselves?
Well, that's hard until the consolidation takes place. If you look at the voice side, despite very heavy pricing of spectrum paid in the last 4 or 5 years, I think the pricing has been able to go up by only 2 or 3 paisa. So you can imagine the intensity of competition. And that's where the government should, really be happy that here's a sector which generates tremendous amount of revenues for the government in terms of auction, license fees, spectrum charges, and yet is one of the lowest price tariffs anywhere in the world.
My last question to you, and this is of course on telecom, before I take one big picture question more. You've sold tower assets in Africa to, of course, reduce debts. Will we see you do more of that? How else will you deleverage your balance sheet?
Well, I don't know where the world is focused on deleveraging our balance sheet. Our balance sheet is actually pretty solid. We have an asset in Africa on which over $11 billion have been spent. There's an asset on the other side. It generates just under $5 billion in revenue. 17 countries, 75 million customers. On the Indian side, we have a very solid balance sheet with almost no debt. So I don't see there's any issue. As far as tower sale is concerned, the tower sale in Africa is a strategic decision to have towers being run by experts. Even in India, we've done the same, excepting that we have created the expertise in our own hands.
That's right.
So we believe in Africa, there are 4 or 5 tower companies which have taken a lead. In India, we are the pioneers.
That's right.
So it's better to give it to them. And of course, the money that comes through that will reduce the debt in African balance sheet. And it works perfectly fine for us because you need to share those assets.
They don't call you the telecom czar without a reason. I have a last question to ask of you. The budget is right around the corner. Plenty of expectations riding against Mr. Jaitley and Mr. Modi. As one of the tallest leaders of India Inc., what are the three things that you would want Mr. Jaitley to do in this budget?
Well, you got some early hints in the ET Global Summit.
That's right.
That we should expect a very solid budget, very enabling budget, which will invite investments, both domestic and global. There will be simplification or clarification around tax issues, which has been the bugbear of many from around the world. So ease of doing business will be reflected through the passage of the next budget.
Thanks very much for speaking to us.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.